So welcome to this webinar. This is kind of an informal session and grew out of a conversation Roberto and I were having a couple of days ago. Now, if you've not been to one of these webinars before, my name's Stuart Easton. I'm one of the founders at Transparent Choice, and we do project prioritization software. So we work with companies around the world to help them really get a handle on how to prioritize projects. And Roberto is one of our key partners. And Roberto is a really, really old guy. Okay, you see the gray hair, and he's been doing this for 30 years, probably a little more than that, right, Roberto? Which means he's made every mistake you can make. He's seen every mistake that you can see. And the reason that we just keep inviting him back is because he's so generous and willing to share some of that wisdom with us. Right?
Thank you. And
so we were talking the other day about a particular customer who's wrestling with some challenges, and what they're trying to do is kind of get their arms around enterprise level prioritization. How do we do that? And there are lots of ways you could do it. You can build all kinds of spreadsheet models, and very smart people can come up with some really convincing looking spreadsheets. But actually, it turns out there are good ways of doing that and there are bad ways. And really smart people can, and often, in fact, I would say usually do, get it wrong. And the internet is great for all kinds of things, but there's a lot of misinformation on the internet as well. So you can go out and read an article that says, hey, do it this way, and they can tell you exactly the wrong way of doing something. And so what I want to do today, this is going to be a really short session, is have Roberto share some war stories with us. We're not going to talk about how to do it. We're not going to talk about the detail of the technology, technically, how do we do this? It's just war stories.
We had two cases important to say. This is the aerospace company here, and the other one was one of the biggest electric power company in Brazil. It's a big one because Brazil is a big country. That the IT department decided to prioritize the backlog of the projects and ask for each department evaluate the contribution of his project for the strategic objectives of the company using a 1-3-5 scale. Okay, and they put the weight in the strategic objectives using 1-3-5. They multiply everything. And after 3 months, everybody working together, they went in a big room and make a projection of the results. And the result was following. Some directors said, excuse me, but this project is so important for our company, that's not in the ranking, that's not the ranking of this project. And the others say, yeah, you have reason. My project is in this position, and it's more important than this other in the ranking. And this IT director said, but the numbers do not lie. And my response for him was, your numbers lie because your scale was wrong. Your numbers lie. Your numbers lie because your numbers lie because your numbers lie your numbers lie because your scale was wrong.
So he used a particular scale, but actually, I mean, underneath that, the challenge is that there are good ways of developing a prioritization model. Right? They're well tested and proven ways, and they didn't follow one of those. They didn't follow that methodology, right? And you and I know that one of probably the best one out there is something called AHP, Analytic Hierarchy Process. And so the point, I think, is he didn't engage in figuring out what best process is, and he didn't follow a good process for building that model. So he ended up with something that the organization fundamentally didn't believe. And what happened to that guy?
He imploded. He was fired.
He imploded.
That's true. He imploded, yes, because he expended a lot of time from a lot of departments. And start a discussion. between the directors of the company, competing which project was more important, and the methodology did translate the reality. That was the case. And after they call me, and it was in the moment that I said your numbers lie for you because you used the wrong scale. And we use the HP methodology to implement a solution after.
And that worked well.
It worked well. Yes,
Right.
sure.
And then there was another example you were telling me about where, so it was a big oil and gas company, an international oil and gas company. And they were doing the similar thing. They sort of made up a model. They had some very bright people, really bright engineers. They made up a model, but again, they hadn't followed a proper proven methodology to do that. So they hadn't used AHP or anything like that. But then before they rolled it out, they called you in. What happened then?
Yeah, that case was in the R&D department. In that moment, was one of the three more important petroleum company in the world. Is an international Brazilian petroleum company, and the R&D department, they had 12 portfolios of R&D technologies with 600 projects, and they feel that the methodology don't translate what they want. That was discriminate the projects, because when you use the 135 scale, you get a graphic that you look like a star.
And like
You
this.
have a lot. Yes, like this one. Like this one is a lot of projects with the same value. It means that's a result of a 135 scale.
So you see these here. So basically, when you don't build a model appropriately, when you don't follow a good methodology, you end up with these plateaus, and there's no way to discriminate between the projects here.
No. And if you take a look on this, you have more than 10% of the projects that you evaluate that you spend a lot of time, involve a lot of people to get nothing as a result, because everything is equal.
So I want to be really clear. So this is anonymized data. You can't see where this is, but actually this is real data from a real customer.
Sure.
With real projects. And the team who put this together were really, really smart people, right? Really smart people, but they just didn't follow a good methodology. And so they've spent a year in this case putting this together, and they've ended up with a model where, that looks like about a third, maybe even half of the projects have got the same score. And then I'd say 70% are on plateaus where you can't tell anything. 70% of the projects you can't discriminate.
No, right? It means you spend a lot of time. You was doing your best. The team are doing the best.
Yeah, doing your best
to get a result that make no sense.
Right.
And
so the oil company, they spotted that, right? They were smart enough.
Yes.
They realized there was a problem, and they said, "Hey, Roberto, what should we do?" So what did you do, and what was the result?
We did a proof of concept in the same data that they have the plateau to see what they get as a result. And when they saw that the result using AHP translate the reality or their feelings, we start to implement the AHP in the 12 portfolios, in measuring the 600 projects. And so they are using until today. It was in 2006. It was 14 years ago, and they are using.
So one of the challenges, I think, when you're pulling together kind of an enterprise level prioritization process is often, you have lots of stakeholders around the organization, and it can be really difficult to get them to buy into this process and to buy into this model. So do you have any thoughts on how those two models were received by the stakeholder group? Because you did some research and actually asked them, right?
Yes, I did. It was interesting because when we started the second model, they start in a moment thinking this won't work because the first one didn't work.
Right.
And when we run the first meeting doing the pairwises and everybody voting the criteria, it was interesting because it was a buy-in for everybody of the methodology.
Ah.
And everybody becomes the owner of the solution.
So let's dig in. So let me just pull that out, because I think that's really interesting. So there was a centralized process, but everyone, all the stakeholders, felt like they owned it. So
Yes.
what was the effect of that in the end? I mean, did this guy implode, or what happened?
No, didn't implode. They implemented the software in the rest of the company, in the other departments also.
And so you actually wrote that up as a paper, a research paper, and you know, so far from it imploding, you know, they're still using it 14 years later. And that paper went on and was presented at Congress and won awards and all kinds of stuff, right? So
Yes.
there was one guy who kind of said, right, I don't, you know, I'm not going to engage, and I'm just going to go with whatever I think is the right thing, do a bit of research on the internet and build something. And one guy who was smart enough to say, right, there are experts in this field, of which you are one. I'm going to get them in and have them give me a methodology. One of them exploded or imploded, and the other one went on and had a great success.
Yeah, Stuart, is to how, when you fix a computer with the wrong tool, you don't get a good result.
Well, I think a hammer is the right tool for just about anything. So.
Yes, but doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
It means, it doesn't work. And one thing that's interesting, that you have excellent universities studying decision making and investing a lot, to make better decisions, and you have Nobel Prizes as Daniel Kahneman, for example, or Richard Thaler last year about economic behavior, and that show us that we have another way to be rational. That's not we are not rational. It's another way to be rational. You need to use this to get better results.
Brilliant. Well, that's really fun. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing those stories, Roberto.
No, that's my pleasure. It was interesting to share.
Well, let's go and do a few more together and see if we can make a few more stories together.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.